One of the things we wanted to mention was the quarter. I think one thing to watch for is the quarterbacks in the blue-white game. And I mean, by quarterbacks, I mean people other than Sean Clifford, who we have talked about ad nauseum on this show, when Mark's hosted us. We all know what we have with Cliff at this point. We want to talk more about the other guys. Who do you see, Marty, grabbing that backup spot?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it'd be a surprise if the go-to guy, quarterback two, is not Christian Veilleux. I mean, last year he really impressed against Rutgers in that game he played. And I feel like it kind of gets overlooked at this point because of how well Penn State's recruiting the quarterback position all of a sudden. But he was no slouch as a recruit himself. He was a 4-star guy from the Bullis program in Maryland, which produced a lot of talent, including, rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins was a star out of Bullis. Christian Veilleux was very, very hardly recruited by Clemson. The Tigers wanted him badly. They were after him hard. Georgia was in on that recruitment. Notre Dame kicked the tires on it. Like, there were a lot of big-time programs after him, and he looked good last year. And it's easy to kind of look past him when you bring in a 4-star quarterback in Beau Pribulka, who's an in-state guy who broke a lot of Pennsylvania records that people know well. And, of course, Drew Aller, who we have talked about ad nauseum on here, arguably the best quarterback recruit in the country, and regardless of recruiting class, sans maybe Arch Manning in high school last year. So the talent in the quarterback room is just night and day above where it's been. And really, I couldn't tell you the last time Penn State quarterback room is talented. So it's good to have that there. I think Veilleux's the number 2 guy right now. If this is fast forwarding a little bit, but if we get to Purdue in early September and Sean Clifford gets knocked out of the game, I expect it to be Christian Veilleux. But that said, one of the things that's so great for Penn State quarterbacks right now, if Veilleux comes in and struggles the way, say, Taquan Roberson did last year against Iowa, you've got multiple other legitimate options to go to. And that's what's going to be exciting to watch this spring. You look at Drew Aller, he's a guy who comes in with all the physical tools, all the talent in the world, but needs to refine some mechanics. And, one thing with him that gives me hope that he could be just a absolute game-changing dynamic quarterback for Penn State is Mike Yurcich has a pretty dang good track record with quarterbacks. And you give him a quarterback the talent of Aller, and this is no knock on any of the guys he had at Oklahoma State. He had some really productive quarterbacks at Oklahoma State. But purely from a talent standpoint, you look at Aller versus what he did with some of those guys, and you got to be thinking like, man, what's he going to do with a Drew Aller? What's he going to do even with a Christian Veilleux, with a Beau Pribulka, excuse me. So while I expect Veilleux to be the number 2 guy, I know I'm kind of ranting here, and it's hard not to, I'm sure you agree, Tim, because at Penn State, we're so used to the quarterback room being the biggest thing holding the team back. I mean, look at Penn State, really, since James Franklin's got here. Outside of a couple of the Tracy McSorley years, you always said they were a team that, man, they're a quarterback away. And I feel like that's not the case anymore. Like, maybe this season, but I feel like long-term, the quarterback answer is finally here. And it's easy as a Penn State fan to get excited and talk about that.
Yeah, I think I was definitely nodding in agreement with you when you mentioned, they find themselves in another situation like they did last year at Iowa where, Cliff gets knocked out, and say Veilleux comes in, he struggles too. I mean, at least at that point, you're not feeling like you have to keep him in there because everyone else behind him is too raw. We said Pribulka, who, from what it sounds like in spring practice, he's one of the guys. He's got the accuracy and he's got that moxie and attitude. And of course, in fact, he's wearing number 9. I mean, I don't know. You can't resist making the Trace McSorley comparisons with him. With Drew Aller, it sounds like obviously his kid's got the physical tools. Accuracy might need a little work and all. I think the other thing that's been harped on the most is just he just needs more time in a proper strength conditioning program. He apparently didn't do much strength. Well, I say condition didn't do much strength work in high school, so he'll get caught up on that. I think I want to say it was our colleague Clay Sauertig who said that there's a decent chance Drew Aller redshirts, which is not something I would have thought maybe a month ago. But
Yeah, I
perhaps
mean,
it may not be the worst thing for him.
no, and I think it's easy to envision the red shirt because, excuse me, if Penn State comes out this year and they're playing well, Sean Clifford's going to be the quarterback. He's going to start against Purdue. And if they're winning football games, they're not going to make a change of quarterback. And, if they do make a change of quarterback, again, I think they would go to Veilleux before they would go to Drew Aller. And that's not a knock on Aller. That's also, and we've seen this at Penn State with a guy like a Rob Bolden or maybe like an Anthony Morelli, a 5-star talent with all the physical tools in the world. He gets thrown to the fire too soon and it just derails their development. You don't want to risk that with Aller either. If you get 5 games into the season, you're 3-2, and you're getting banged up at quarterback, do you really want to throw Drew Aller out there, especially behind an offensive line? There's a lot of question marks. Probably not. So I don't have a problem with him redshirting. But yeah, it's again, not to keep beating this dead horse, and Penn State fans will understand, but it's just so nice to finally be able to legitimately be excited about the future of the quarterback room. And what's great is it's not just one guy. There are multiple arms in that room who are good enough to, win you a Big Ten championship and potentially beyond.
Right. You see a comment from Andrew saying, when a true freshman playing, otherwise it could indicate big problems in the QB room. Yeah, to an extent, I'd have to agree with that. I guess ideally, you wouldn't want Drew Aller being your starter during the season, unless if he really makes leaps and bounds between now and the fall. Let's say, Cliff gets hurt or he, regresses during the year and say Christian Veilleux doesn't fare much better, or he gets hurt. Now you're down to just Aller and Pribulka, then maybe you give him a shot. But of course, again, that indicates some problems because now you got a couple quarterbacks who aren't cutting it. So yeah, ideally redshirting him is maybe the best thing. And like I said, I think looking back at what Veilleux did in the Rutgers game, especially when he was like literally the only scholarship QB available that was healthy, I should say. They tried to play Sean Clifford, but it was clear that he had no business being on the field that day. You saw what he was able to do with his legs. He seemed pretty decisive as far as whether to take off and run or keep work on his checkdowns and find an open guy. So it gave me some confidence going forward that with him and with the other with Aller and Pribulka that we hopefully will not see a repeat of Iowa last year. So